In 2025, the race for the Calder Trophy is stacked. Elite talent at every position, all making a serious case for the trophy, but when the dust settles, only one can win, and one player might just have the edge. Every year, the Calder Trophy is awarded to the best rookie in the NHL. It's often a tight battle, like last year's showdown between Connor Bedard and Brock Faber, or past races like Matthews versus Laine or Makar versus Quinn Hughes, but this year, it just feels different. We have Macklin Celebrini, the 2024 first overall pick. We also have Matvei Michkov, the Russian phenom we've been hearing about for years now. We also have Dustin Wolf, a former 7th round pick who's dominated at every level despite being just 6 feet tall. And we also have Lane Hutson, a 2nd round pick defenseman putting up numbers we've rarely seen before. In this video, we're diving into the Calder race and breaking down every player's case for the rookie trophy. Just a heads up, stats might differ a tiny bit as this was written last week and took a few days to edit and put together, but everything should essentially stay the same. Please take the time to like and subscribe if you like the content that I do, and let's get into it. There are many elements to consider when deciding who should win the Calder Trophy here. Obviously, statistic and historical value play a large role. However, other factors are also important, such as the player's role on the team, their usage, their ice time, their impact on the team's success, and the level of competition they face night after night. When it comes to usage and team role, there's a lot of variety because all of these players are at different positions. On one hand, Dustin Wolf started 49 games for the Calgary Flames, firmly establishing himself as their starting goalie, tied with Stuart Skinner at number 18 for the most starts by a rookie goalie. Both Michkov and Celebrini played a significant part of the season. Celebrini missed some games due to injury, but he has played 65 games so far, while Michkov has 10 more with 75. A key difference between these two players is their time on ice. Celebrini is trusted with an average of 3 or more minutes of 5-on-5 ice time at 16 minutes 27 seconds, while Michkov's average is a little bit more conservative at 13 minutes and 42 seconds. They both play a significant amount of time on the power play, averaging close to 3 minutes each. However, Celebrini again receives slightly more ice time here. His total ice time is quite similar to Connor Bedard's average from last season. It's important to remember that their teams had vastly different goals at the start of the season. Until the end of December, Philadelphia was only 2 points behind a wild card spot, while the Sharks were already at the very bottom of the standings. This, combined with Philadelphia's more conservative coaching staff, makes a huge difference. A team trying to make the playoffs won't play a rookie winger the same amount as a team trying to get a high draft pick, unless that winger offers incredible value on both sides of the puck, which, let's face it, Michkov didn't. Lane Hutson, on the other hand, played more than both forwards, which is typical for a defenseman. He averaged 22 minutes and 39 seconds of total ice time with 2 minutes and 47 seconds on the power play, putting him on par with Michkov for power play time. In terms of overall ice time, his season is very similar to Brock Faber's from last season, except that Faber played significant shorthanded minutes, which Hutson did not play at all. So while time on ice is important, how that time is spent also matters. What is the quality of their teammates and what's the quality of their competition? How are they deployed? These are all important questions. Comparing the two forwards again, Michkov played most of his minutes with Konechny and Couturier, or sometimes spent some time with Tippett, so the quality of his teammate was quite good. He wasn't stuck playing with lower tier players or anything like that. Celebrini played most of his minutes on a consistent line with Eklund and Toffoli, but he also spent a lot of shift with Zetterlund and Will Smith. Overall, he had decent teammates and good stability. Hutson, on the other hand, played significant minutes with both Mike Matheson and Jaden Struble, but he also played with Goalie and Savard, so he essentially played with the entire defensive team, mostly on the left side, but also on the right side more recently. It's probably fair to say that Hutson had the least consistent line mates, but overall, according to Dom's model and natural static stats, Celebrini had the least support of all of them. Furthermore, Hutson and Celebrini had very similar deployment in terms of offensive zone starts, both at around 16%. The breakdown of their shift between neutral, defensive, and on-the-fly starts was also very similar, and both were second on their respective teams in terms of share of possible ice time. In contrast, Michkov had the most offensive deployment of his team with 22% of his shift starting in the offensive zone, zone and a significantly lower share of possible ice time, barely cracking the top 10 on Philadelphia's roster. Now, let's look at the statistics and compare these rookies to each other and to previous Calder nominees. We'll start with Dustin Wolf, as we haven't discussed him much yet. There aren't many goalie nominees for the Calder, and even fewer goalies who have won it. The last one was Steve Mason in 2008-2009. The same year, Bobby Ryan and Chris Versteeg were nominated, which shows how long ago that was. Beyond Mason, these are the goalies that have been nominated since then. There are some strong nominations like Bennington, who played fewer games but led the St. Louis Blues to a Stanley Cup win in his rookie year. I'll just present the stats, but we can see that Dustin Wolf has the weakest overall stats of this group. Similar to Stuart Skinner, his save percentage and goals against average aren't particularly impressive compared to other Calder nominees, but he does have the best goals saved above expected by a good margin at 15.4. However, it's obvious that the team in front of a goalie has a huge impact on their stats, so we can look at the team's points percentage to get an idea of the combined performance of a Calder-worthy goalie and their team together. Due to the COVID years, we use points percentage as the better measures as opposed to total points, and at first glance, we can see that Wolf has played on the worst team of this group, similar to Steve Mason, both with points percentage around .560 compared to some in the 600s and 700s. But the most surprising case is Bennington, who played his first game on January 7th. At the time when he took over, the St. Louis Blues were second to last in the NHL with a .462 point percentage. He then took over and led them to a Stanley Cup win. That's a crazy perspective. As for Michkov and Celebrini, if we compare them to previous Calder winners, Michkov's 0.77 points per game would place him in the lower end of the list over the last 15 years, similar to players like Jeff Skinner and Nathan MacKinnon, and ahead of players like Jonathan Huberdeau, Gabriel Landeskog, and Matty Beniers. Celebrini, on the other hand, has been more productive with a 0.88 points per game, getting closer to players like Connor Bedard, Kirill Kaprizov, Elias Pettersson, and Artemi Panarin, and ahead of players like Austin Matthews. It's difficult to directly compare all these players because they all played on different situations, on different teams, with different teammates, and with different deployment. Some of them played on teams that made the playoffs like Matthews, Beniers, Kaprizov, and Panarin, while others played on very bad teams like Bedard. Both Michkov and Celebrini are in situations that are closer to Bedard's from last year. One way to try to make this comparison more equal for every player is to look at points per 60 minutes played. This isn't perfect by any means, but it gives us a general idea of their production relative to their ice time. Some of the most productive forwards in the last decade and a half have been Matthew Barzal, Elias Pettersson, and Kirill Kaprizov, with points per 60 around 2.87, 2.48, and 2.64 respectively. In this case, Michkov is ahead of Celebrini with a strong 2.40 points per 60 compared to Celebrini's 1.96, which is closer to Bedard's from last year and below most players on this list except for Huberdeau and Landeskog. One of the reasons I don't really like the per 60 stat is that it doesn't tell you anything about their deployment or the quality of their competition. 60 sheltered minutes against a third line is not the same as 60 minutes with neutral deployment while being heavily pressured and hammered in your own zone by the opposing team's top line. They are simply not the same. However, we do have access to data of the quality of the competition. Michkov was basically the most sheltered of the two forwards, playing with better line mates and against a significantly lower level of competition. Celebrini, on the other hand, played against top opposition night after night with lower quality line mates. But in the end, they both put up significant numbers in tough situations. Michkov scored 26% of his points on the power play, while Celebrini scored 37% of his points on the man advantage. They both face defensive challenges playing on struggling teams, which doesn't help their defensive stats. However, both are at the top of their team in relative expected goals, which is it's a somewhat noisy statistics that can be heavily influenced by a few good or bad games, but with a large enough sample size, it's worth considering, and they both drive play for their respective teams. Now let's see how Hutson compares to them and to previous Calder winning defensemen. The last few Calder winning defensemen are Moritz Seider, Cale Makar, Aaron Ekblad, and Tyler Myers. Obviously, Seider, Ekblad, and Myers are very different players than Hutson. Hutson compares more closely to players like Makar and nominees like Quinn Hughes, Rasmus Dahlin, Zach Werenski, and Shane Gostisbehere. So first, let's look at the points per game, and at .82, Hutson is between both Michkov and Celebrini, but above every defenseman who has won or has been nominated for the Calder in at least the last decade, outside of Makar, who probably is the best defenseman of his generation and who won the Calder at .88. Just like with the forwards, we'll try to use points per 60 minutes as the common denominator, and the same thing happens. Hutson is putting up more points per 60 minutes at 1.24 than every other defenseman in the last decade apart from Makar, who had a remarkable 1.89 points per 60 minutes of ice time. If we compare Hutson to Michkov and Celebrini in terms of quality of competition this season, he faced the second hardest competition behind Celebrini while playing with lower quality teammates than Michkov but better than Celebrini. And just like them, he is at the top of the relative expected goal statistics on the Canadiens, indicating that the team seems to be better with him on the ice than without him. After all this, based on the stats, I think it's fair to say that they all have a strong case for the Calder Trophy. Celebrini performing the way he has with the toughest matchups and the lowest quality of teammates is truly impressive. His Calder case is quite similar to Connor Bedard's from last season. Michkov, on the other hand, didn't receive the same level of trust from his coaches and had more sheltered and easier deployment. However, he has been the most efficient scorer of the three and clearly projects as an elite dual threat winger in the NHL. Hutson might be the biggest outlier when it comes to stats, with more points than all of them as a defenseman. He even has more points than Bedard, the Calder winner from last season. He has been so productive that he is now tied at number 5, with probably the best defenseman that ever existed in Ray Bourque for the most points by a rookie defenseman in the NHL history, and could even pass him with still one game to go. Also, he is only 1 point behind Larry Murphy for the all-time record for most assists by a rookie defenseman. And at the franchise level, he has already broken the record for the most assists by any rookie, and not just defenseman, any rookie, and he is now first in points for a rookie defenseman in Habs history with 1 point over Chris Chelios. All this on one of the most storied franchises in all of sports. There's no denying that what he's been doing is special, and also Celebrini also holds the number 1 spot for most points by a rookie in the Sharks history, which is also impressive. Outside of his saves above expected, I'm not sure that Dustin Wolf's statistical profile is as strong as Michkov, Celebrini's, and Hutson. However, there's an argument to be made that he might have had the biggest impact on his team. His individual stats are quite good, but the fact that Calgary is still fighting for the last wildcard spot, at least at the moment of writing this, likely has some value. It's hard to quantify this though, as these assessments are often based on opinions rather than hard facts. Nobody expected the Canadiens to be in the playoff spot with 1 game to go, so opinions can be unreliable. But definitely Wolf is up there with Hutson for the most valuable rookie to his team. Michkov and Celebrini didn't have nearly the same level of impact in terms of team standing, while both Wolf and Hutson significantly helped their respective team reach their current positions. Where their impact differs a bit is that in the first half of the season, Wolf had a .917 save percentage and a .250 goals against average with 16 wins in 25 games. Just incredible stats for a rookie. In the second half though, his numbers were .904 and .273 with only 10 wins in 24 games. Things got a little bit messier for him. Meanwhile, Hutson had a harder time adapting defensively to the NHL, and by the time the Four Nation tournament hit, he was in -20 in plus-minus, but since then, he has improved in every aspect of the game and is now at -2 just 2 months later. He is also on track to finish the season with the most takeaways on the entire Canadian team and is at the top of the lineup for the fewest on-ice expected goals against. After all this, I think they all have strong cases, and any of them could potentially win the award if they weren't competing against each other. Celebrini is the most trusted, with strong offensive production despite limited support and facing top competition night after night. Michkov's case rests more in his scoring efficiency with limited ice time, especially at 5-on-5. On the other hand, Wolf has a case due to his solid stat and significant role he plays in Calgary's fight for a playoff spot. However, I also think that it's clear by now that Hutson has the strongest case by a significant margin due to his record-breaking season as a rookie defenseman. His level of offensive dominance isn't exactly at Makar's level, but it's not that far behind. While he has put together a statistically better season than almost any rookie defenseman in recent decades, and he has been a major factor in Montreal's success this season. Personally, I would have Hutson as the winner, Celebrini as the runner-up, Michkov as the finalist, and Wolf at number 4. Let me know in the comments who your Calder winner is, and thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.